Hi, I'm Wallace Kinney, but you can call me Wallissimo, and now that we are in 2025, it is the era of the goals. Everybody's making videos about all their plans for the new year, me included. Asterisk in the fact that I am making a goal bullet journal and I fully plan on doing a flip through video of it, but it's not ready yet and I don't want to rush it. So I'm going to take about another week to finish it up. But spoiler alert, since one of my goals is to make a certain number of YouTube videos this year, I did need to do something today. So instead, I'm going to be talking about my very specific reading goals for 2025. So that's what we're going to cover today. And just in case this is your first video of mine, I am a writer, I'm an author. My debut novel, A Dark and Secret Magic, was published this October. She's my little love letter to Halloween. So if you're kind of thinking to yourself, now that the holidays are over, I'm kind of want to sneak back into my witchy mood. If you're looking for something a little spooky, a little cozy to read in the spooky, cozy nights of January, I personally think January is a very spooky month, check out my book. The link to order her is down in the description below. Anyway, self-promo time is over. Let's move on. Now, I have 25 big goals for 2025, and most of those I will be covering hopefully in a video next week. But today we're going to talk about my reading goal, which is to fill up a reading journal cover to cover. I have never made a dedicated reading journal before, even though I am very much a bullet journal girly. I can attest to this. I have multiple videos on this channel about my love of bullet journaling. I am frequently making new author journals, new project journals, etc., etc. But the idea of making a reading journal all in of itself had me a little overwhelmed, which is where the company Notebook Therapy came in to save the day. Obviously not sponsored, even though I talk about Notebook Therapy all the time. Wish they would sponsor me. Not sponsored. Late last year, Notebook Therapy released this book, which is a pre-made reading bullet journal. So the inside pages are made to look as if, you know, a very aesthetic girly pop has created her reading journal for the year, but it's pre-printed, and so I had to do almost zero work. I've just had to fill out some of the initial information, and I thought it'd be super fun to open it up and give you guys a peek into what is inside of this. And just for context, in order to fill this thing cover to cover, which is my goal for this year, I'm gonna have to read over 90 books. So that being said, I'm gonna flip the camera around, we're gonna switch to a top-down view, and I'm gonna take you through the pages of the Notebook Therapy reading BUJO. All right, here she is up close in all of her glory. I think she is one of the most beautiful journals that Notebook Therapy has put out. She has gold detailing on this almost velvet type covering texture-wise, and then again, these just really, really pretty gold details. And on the side, very kindly labeled reading journal, but how beautiful is that? Imagine putting this on your bookshelf where you can have all the books you've read and also your beautiful reading journal. I just think it's so gorgeous. I love her so much. Flipping to the inside, we have one of the very lovely bookmarks in a similar color green that is on the cover, as well as this inside wallpaper-esque, I don't even know what this is called on the inside of a book, but I think it looks like French wallpaper, and I think the pattern is just beautiful. The very first page is just a place where you can put your name. I've written Wallissimo because I am Wallissimo, and it also just says that it is the reading journal by Notebook Therapy. This paperclip does not come with it. I was using the paperclip to stick stickers in here that I wanted to use for the reading journal. Also, I'm just gonna point it out, I have a wound on my thumb. I was making fondue and I grated myself when I was grating the cheese, so I apologize if it kind of wigs you out. The first content page is an index, which goes for a little while, and it is for you to fill in yourself as you begin reading books. In fact, I have already read a book this year. It is January 2nd. I'm so proud of myself. I've already finished a book, so I need to go in and put it in, but I will do that later. And I just realized that I have a little bit of personal information on the next page, so I'm gonna go and cover that up with a sticker, and I'll be right back. Okay, fixed. I also put a little concealer on the wound on my thumb, so it's not quite so angry looking. The area that I covered up, I mean, I covered up my name, but at this point, I'm a published author. My name is Wallace Kinney. That should not be shocking to anybody, but I did cover up my personal email and my phone number and my birthday. That's not really that private, but whatever. I love these two pages. This is what I mean when I say it's as if you made your own bullet journal. I feel like I've seen this spread on reading journal setup videos many a time over the years of me consuming those kinds of videos. These pages are about the reader and reading goals, and we're going to go over the information that I have filled in on these pages. So, like I said, there was just a general biography section. There's a little place for self-portrait. I don't know if I'm going to actually attempt to draw myself eventually, or if I'm just going to stick in a tiny little photo. This book has a ton of places for you to put pictures, so I do have half a mind to buy like a little Polaroid printer or something like that, just so I can appropriately fill out these pages. But that might be something I save up for and might do more towards the middle of the year. In my likes and dislikes section, for every like that I picked, I wanted to pick a semi-corresponding dislike. So I have that I like pining in a story. I dislike true enemies to lovers because it distresses me whenever a man hates a woman and then I'm supposed to root for them to get together. That's really hard for my brain to wrap around. I love magical realism. I do not like stories where the setting is a dystopia. I love happy endings. I dislike a rushed wrap up. I love a good twist, and I dislike unnecessary death or shock value twists. For my favorite genres, I put romance, sci-fi, fantasy. I could not pick between the three, so I just list them all. My reading companion, I was really torn here. I am currently cat sitting 2 cats, and they are very, very sweet, but I felt like putting their names here would be a betrayal to my parents' dog, who has been for the past 7 years my little buddy. But I also don't live at home anymore, so she is not anymore really a companion for me, which is very, very sad to say. So I've left this blank out of loyalty to her. My favorite color is green. Don't know why that's important for the reading journal to know, but I filled it out because it was there. And also how brilliant that my favorite color is green and the reading journal this year was green. And then my favorite drink is water/hot chocolate. I am a big tea drinker and I will have the occasional coffee, but if push came to shove, I will always pick water over anything. I'm just inherently basic like that. I've not figured out what to do with this little grid section yet, but I'm leaving it open for future inspiration. So that's the About the Reader page. For my reading goals, 90 books. Number of books I want to read this year, 90. Number of physical books I want to purchase. You can see I crossed out. This original goal was just number of books I want to own. I already own quite a few books, and I'm actually trying to limit the amount of books that I purchase. No, that's not correct. That's not how I want to phrase it. I actually plan on purchasing many, many books this year, but I also plan on decluttering and donating just as many books. I love purchasing books as a way of supporting authors. I myself am an author, so I definitely want to support other writers as well, but I want to be very selective about what books I decide are going to have a place in my permanent library. So my system right now is I'll buy a book in paperback and I will read it. And if I either don't like it through to enjoy it, but don't think I'll read it again, then that goes in a little pile. And once a quarter, I take it to a place to donate it. However, if I absolutely love it, if it is a 3.5 star or more for me rating, then I will purchase a hardcover of the book and still donate the paperback, but keep a hardcover, preferably a special edition if there is one to be had, and add that to my permanent library. So, number of physical books I want to purchase. What this really should say is number of special editions or hardcovers I want to purchase, but that just felt like a lot to write in this little section. But long story short, 1 per month is what I'm trying to go for. I would love, in this year of reading 90 books, I would love if a little over 10 to 15% were fabulous 3.5 to 5 star reads for me, and I could add a permanent copy to my collection. And a new genre that I would like to try is nonfiction. I really have never been a nonfiction girl. The only nonfiction book I've read in the past 5 years that has really, really stuck with me is The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. I've read a couple of books on philanthropy recently, and I want to get more into that. I'm not really the biggest self-help book girl, but I would love to read more biographies or science communication books or other sort of books that lead to my word of the year, which this was the last thing I filled out. I filled this out on New Year's Eve because I really wanted to wait to select my word of the year until I felt I had a word that truly evoked what I was going for. And that word, as you can see, is enrichment. So if I can find nonfiction books that I think will enrich my life, then those will be the ones that I read. And basically any book that I read this year, I would love to lead towards enrichment, but I think the inherent act of reading more will be enriching for me. So, and then my smaller goals, while the main goal, actually I wouldn't even call reading 90 books the main goal. The main goal, as you'll see on the next page, is to fill this book cover to cover. But these are the big goals. And then smaller goals are, this is the big goal. I want to fill up this book. I want to read 10 books on philanthropy. I want to beta read for 3 different people in the AuthorTube community. I want my Mondays to be my big reading day. I want to read 10 children's books. I want to participate in 2 different readathons. I would like for more of my time this year to be spent reading rather than scrolling, and I would like to do a monthly wrap-up video. Again, just kind of going back to the whole, this looks like it is a bullet journal you made yourself vibe. I love how not symmetrical these circles are for the checklists. They look very much like they were hand-drawn, not even using a stencil, and I just love it because it's like all the beauty of a bullet journal without any of the work. Which I will say, there is something enriching about doing a bullet journal yourself and having the pride of having handcrafted the journal that you're going to work in. But given that I'm already doing multiple bullet journals for different areas of my life this year, I'm going to let this one slide that I purchased this one instead of making it myself. All right. Our next page is our progress tracker. I really think this is a great simple spread. It's got another one of these grid sections for just general notes. My main goal, which I have now repeatedly said, is to fill up this book cover to cover, and a progress tracker that goes from 0 to 100%. And I added these numbers here for my personal tracking because roughly these number of books correspond to how much of the journal is getting filled up. Once I have read 9 books, roughly 10% of the journal has been filled, 18, 20%, 27, 30%, etc., etc. Over here is the reading tracker where every single day I'm going to indicate what my reading for the day was like. Either I started a book, I continued a book, or I finished a book, and the color will change depending on what that activity was. And of course, I'll just leave it blank if I did not read for the day. As you can see, yesterday on January 1st, I finished a book, and we'll get into what book that was in just a second. Granted, I read about 90% of that book in 2024, but I'm giving it to myself. I'm counting that as a book for 2025 because we've got 90 books to get through. It's going to take a minute, and so I'm going to take any win I can take. This I love. This is kind of the spread that sold me on purchasing this pre-made bullet journal because, and I will show you why, just give me 1 second. This was my goal journal for last year, for 2024, my 24 goals in 2024, if you will. The very first spread I had, in fact, was, look at that. I know I'm not some genius. I know this is a very common thing that people do in their reading journals, but I loved the spread. Very sadly, did not finish it. I actually read about 2 or 3 more books than what's listed here, but I did not make my goal of 24 books last year, which is hilarious that now I'm attempting to read 90. But you know what? We're moving on. So anyway, I thought, oh my gosh, how perfect. I could just buy this journal instead of having to make this spread again and inherently have made life more complicated for myself. Because if I had just had a 25 book reading goal and recreated that spread in this year's bullet journal, obviously, clearly that would have been a lot less work than attempting to fill this journal from cover to cover. But again, we're just going to move on. What I also love is that they have this little note up here. Feel free to add your own books and decorations on the shelves because as you can see, there are not 90 books here. I'm going to have to fill up these pages as the year continues on, and they really do give you a ton of space for that. All right, and then the next about 9 spreads, I think, are book highlights. I have not filled one in yet because I want to reserve these for the books that I think I'm going to buy permanent editions of. But these are nice little spreads. It's a place where you can draw or put a picture of the book cover. You list the title, the author, the genre, your star rating, any general thoughts you had, your favorite chapter, your favorite character, your favorite scene, and your favorite quote. These are a couple of pages that are reserved for your favorite quotes from all the books that you read. And again, I'm holding off. I have read one book already, but no quote specifically jumped out at me that I want to write down yet. But I do plan on totally filling this out. In fact, let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So 20 quotes. I need to be on the lookout. And I just think these are so beautiful. It's like someone stamped in these stencils, and I love the little like coffee ring stains. I think this is so cute. This is way cuter than I would have ever made a reading journal. Okay, this review library section is kind of the main draw that I have for wanting to buy a tiny little Polaroid printer, because I think it would be so cool to print off all the covers of the books that I read this year. And as you can see, I have already written down the book that I finished reading yesterday. It's very, very, very small. I don't know if you can actually see it, but I finished reading Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands by Heather Fawcett. I gave it 3.5 stars, which again, for me, is like an inherent enthusiastic. I really enjoyed this book. Just for what it's worth, I never enter my ratings onto Goodreads because my rating system would skew quite harsh. It would make it seem like I did not enjoy this book. And so my rating system is just for me. I don't want to go onto an author's Goodreads page or Amazon profile or whatever and kind of drag down their number rating just because I have such a specific rating system that I do, which, if you're curious, I believe I have a video about my rating system with the ever controversial title, Why I Never Rate Books 5 Stars. So if you're curious to see how I rate books, you can go and check out that video. But there are quite a few spaces for the review library. I kind of think of these spreads as taking snapshots of the bulk of the book. It's like an overview, a quick overview of everything that was accomplished in the year, because I'm about to flip the page and you're going to see what the majority of the pages in this book look like, and that is this. Now, this is the very first one. There are 90 of these, roughly, I think. I think it's 90. And I have filled it out because I have already, as I've said, finished a book for this year, Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands by Heather Fawcett. I started it in November of last year. I finished it on January 1st of 2025. It's the fantasy genre. I think it was published in 2024. The page count, that's one of the things that it lists here, is 339 pages. The book format I read in a paperback. General thoughts. It says, did I enjoy reading this book? Yes, very much so. Would I recommend this to a friend? Yes, but of course I would encourage them to read the first book in the series because this is book 2 of a trilogy. And would you like a series of this book? Well, yes, in fact, I would, because it is inherently a series. What did I like most about this book? I love that this is a little bubble section for when reviewing a book. And I said the thing I liked most about this book was the delightful aesthetic and vibrant characters. Wendell and Emily, those are our 2 main characters. I love them. I love their interactions and the descriptions of Fairy, which Fairy is the land of the Fae. It's literally called Fairy with a capital F. I love how the author writes the main character, who is human, entering into that world because it is so alien to her that it's very disjointed and strange, but still fantastical. And reading it feels very disjointed and strange. And I think the author does a good job of making the reader feel the way that the main character must feel traversing this strange land. As for what I liked least about this book, which is what this prompt is up here, I was being honest when I said that it felt slightly repetitive in structure to the first book, but overall I truly enjoyed it. And that's 100% true. The first book I find completely delightful. It's about a professor of dryadology, which is the study of the Fae folk, in a world just like ours, but where fairies have been proven to be real. And she travels to the northern wilds of Sweden to document some of the last Fae to be cataloged. And, all sorts of adventures occur and mishaps, etc., etc. And I just found it completely delightful. And this book felt very similar in structure to the first one. You know, certain plot points seem to kind of happen right around the same time as other plot points. But overall, that is a very small complaint on my end. I still very much enjoyed reading the second book in the series. I'm very much looking forward to the release of the third book, which I believe comes out in February. So that's going to be a fantastic little Valentine's Day read for me. Even though it was like the thing I liked least about the book, it's not inherently something I utterly disliked, right? I was pretty much neutral on the fact that the structure felt repetitive, but because I so enjoy everything else about the book, the fact that I'm neutral on the repetitiveness means it is inherently the thing I liked least. And as for overall ratings, the cover design, I rated 5 stars. Let me go get it so you can understand why. This is the cover to the Map of the Other Lands. Look how beautiful she is. I love covers like this, ones that look like old-timey, like you could pull them off a witch's bookshelf. And in fact, let's just, for context, compare. This is my book that came out. This is Map of the Other Lands. Obviously, I think this is the most incredible cover to have ever existed. And so inherently, I'm going to be partial to covers that feel similar. And I think that this cover feels quite similar. So I gave it a 5-star rating for cover design. Writing style, I gave 4 stars. I think this author has a fantastic writing style. Characters, I also gave 4 stars. I think her characters are so unique and interesting. Story and plot, I gave 3 stars. Again, for me, 3 stars is an enthusiastic rating, okay? I just want to reiterate that. 3 stars means very good. But overall, because of the repetitiveness, I did knock it down just a little bit. But overall, still very much enjoyed the plot of this book. General notes that I have for this story are that I want this in a hardcover / special edition, and I think it's going to get a permanent place in my library. And I did look it up, and the Emily Wilde series tends to get special editions through Fairy Crate or one of the fantasy book boxes. So I'm going to keep an eye out and potentially ask for special hardcover editions for my birthday. But there you go. That's what the bulk of the interior of this book looks like. It's just tons and tons of this format. So like, not just tons and tons, it's 90. So we're gonna skip through to the end. This is the last one of those. And then this one I think is really fun. Every single month, you're supposed to pick your favorite book of the month and add a photo. Once again, another reason why having a little printer would be helpful in it helping me achieve this goal. And then this is the spread I am so excited to visit at the end of 2025. It is oh my God, what is this called? Like a tournament where you put the best book of every single month and then you rank them against each other and you pick your finalists and your best book of the year. And I am actually so excited to do this. I think this is going to be the thing that really keeps me on top of this entire journal, is just my excitement over having this little competition right here. Then we have a page for general reading statistics, number of books read, number of pages read, the number of days that I read, which this is going to be a reminder to maintain that tracking chart at the very beginning. That was like the entire year, where I can color in whether or not I finished, continued, or started a new book. A place for me to write down the longest book I read and how many pages it was. A place for me to write down the shortest book I read and how many pages it was. The different types of genres I read, the different types of tropes, the series that I read, the number of physical, ebook, and audiobooks I read. Audiobooks are probably going to be the big winner of the year, just because this is how I envision myself getting through 90 books. The one time in my life I have had a massive reading streak was in January of 2023, and I read 30 books in 1 month, which I know for some people that's like nothing. For me, that was massive, given the fact that, like, consider in 2024, I didn't even read 24 books, right? So 30 books in a month was massive, and they were all audiobooks. So I really do think for me to hit 90 this year, audiobooks are going to be king. Then we have type of books. So number of standalones that I read, number of duologies that I read, and number of series that I read, and how many 1 stars I gave out, 2 stars, 3 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars I gave out. Then we have some extra awards for the books that maybe didn't make it through the competition here. We have first, second, and third place for the best characters that I read, first, second, and third for the best villains, which I'm sort of like, who's to say that a villain can't be the number 1 character that I read this year, and first, second, and third place for the best book, which again, I do feel like is a little repetitive with, you know, this will determine my first, second, and third placement, but I think it's fine to have the same information written twice. First, second, third for best series. First, second, third for best fiction books that I read. First, second, third for best nonfictions that I read. A ranking for the best author, for the best cover art, and oh my God, I just noticed this. Oh, I don't. For the worst books, that feels so mean, but my goal is to fill this out cover to cover. Ooh, that makes me nervous. If I do that, I might not publicize that because that just feels mean. I still have not figured out what to do with this section. It's a book log, but I don't know if it's meant to be like all the books you've read, because then it really does feel repetitive. I think what I might do, because there's this little checkbox right here. Well, first of all, here's the structure. It's a line for where you put the title, a line for where you put the author, and then a little checkbox for if you've read it, question mark. So what I think I could do here is go through all the physical books that I own that I have not read and write them all down. Basically go through my physical TBR, right? And write them all down, write the authors down, and then make it, maybe that's like a side goal I have this year to kind of cut it in half, my physical TBR. So maybe that's what I'll do for my book log, actually. We'll see. This one's quite long, which is good because I have quite a large physical TBR, TBH. Oh, wow. This is like, oh my God. Wow. This is even longer than I realized. Okay. And this one, I don't know actually how much use I'm going to get out of this one. So I'm not counting this against myself in terms of filling this out cover to cover because this is a library card section. I don't really lend books out that often. I do have a neighbor who really loves to read. And if I am doing this experiment, it might be possible that I recommend books for her to read, but the reality is, since I'm going to try and get rid of books anyway, I might just end up giving her the book, especially if it's not one that I think I'm going to put on my permanent shelf, or even if I'm putting it on my permanent shelf, I'm probably going to buy a hardcover and not keep the paperback. So I don't know how many books I will be asking for people to return to me. So this might be a spread that kind of gets neglected pretty significantly this year, but that's okay. And then this one I also felt was a little bit strange. It's a reading challenge spread, which on initial glance sounds super cool, right? But it's not like, this isn't one page for one reading challenge, at least not as far as I can tell. It's a place to write the challenge, who's hosting it, the date I started, and then completed. So that's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 times 2. So 36 reading challenges. And just as a little reminder, at the very start of this journal, I said I wanted to participate in two reading challenges. So I will definitely write down the 2 that I participated in, but those might be the only writing on this spread. And then we have a little this or that section, which I chose fiction over nonfiction. I consider myself to be a fast reader rather than a slow reader, but I am an inconsistent reader. So I think in a way that kind of makes me a slow reader. I prefer audiobook to ebook at the moment. I prefer hardback to paperback. Oh my God, I just noticed I have a hole in my sweater. Oh, well, whatever. I do not know what I was on when I highlighted coffee over tea. Okay, you know what I was on? I was on the truth. The reality is that in 2024, I drank way more coffee than I drink tea. But since the start of the year, I have realized, and by start of the year, I mean in the past 36 hours, I have realized once again how superior tea is. I've literally had like 6 cups of tea already, and I'm obsessed, and I think I'm returning to my tea era, so I might have to go back in with my green highlighter and just highlight both of these. I think I'm more of a night reader rather than a morning reader. Oh, this one is hitting so hard right now. The fact that I highlighted first person over third person. I actually don't mind either, but my first book that I wrote, A Dark and Secret Magic, hello self-promo once again, is in first person. And I started my new book that I'm currently under contract for. I started writing it in first person, and then I felt it kind of didn't work. And so I have started over, and I'm currently writing it in third person. And it's been a bit of an adjustment for me, but I do think it is the right choice, at least for the first draft. We're going to see. I do prefer standalone to series so far, but it's going to be interesting to see how this changes. Maybe what I'll do is green will be the marker for how I felt at the start of the year, and then I'll do like purple for the end of the year to see if my opinion changed at all. And then I prefer single POV to dual POV, which again is hilarious because the book I'm currently writing is currently, for the first draft at least, dual POV. And then I would rather meet my favorite character over meeting my favorite author, because The person in this world who is my favorite author is self-admittedly extremely socially anxious, and I would hate to add to his social anxiety. And so I am fine to just have a parasocial relationship with him. That's fine. And then over here we have book bingo. I'm very, very excited for this. I want to not just get bingo on this page, I want to fully fill it out. I actually have already done so many of these, but I kind of want to save it for this year, except for this first one, which was finish a book in one sitting. I read a book called Successful Philanthropy on December 16th, 2024, which I guess I should go in and add that into these pages. I'll consider it. I'm going to go through all of these though. So used something weird as a bookmark, joined a book club, read a graphic novel, listened to an audiobook. I'm going to finish that one very soon. Met an author. This one is like, I've met myself. Does that count? I don't know. That feels kind of like cheating. I don't know. Read a book with over 600 pages. Read poetry. Not excited for that one. Maybe an AuthorTuber will release poetry. I tend to really enjoy it whenever AuthorTubers release poetry collections. So maybe that's what I'm going to have to count on. Let me know if you're an AuthorTuber and you have a poetry collection out. Self-published, trad published, whatever, and I'll go check it out. Cried during a book, read in a blanket fort is going to be fun. Read a book with less than 100 pages. Liked a book I thought I was going to hate. Had a reading date. Read outside. Done a book swap and stayed up all night to read. And I do think I am going to implement a rule for myself that only one book can count for each of these squares, because like I cried when I was reading Successful Philanthropy. You know, it's a book about charity, right? So obviously it's going to have stories that pull at your heartstrings, but I figured to make this book bingo last a little while longer, I should just let one book count for one square. I'll give you a little sneak peek to what's on the next page. There's a little tennis ball here because this is a bullet journal section. I'm purposely skipping a couple of pages, but you can see these are just doc grid pages. And this is where, when I'm doing beta reading, this is where I'm going to do spreads for all of my beta reading and where I'm going to take notes because I prefer actually to handwrite my beta reading notes before I write up an edit letter. So there are a good number of doc grid pages. I was very pleased that there were some empty pages for me to make my own spreads in this reading journal. And then the final 2 pages are a reflections page that I will fill out in the end of the year. And then of course a next year's wish list. So, and then we just have a back section, a little quote down here that says, reading a book is another form of traveling, get to know new people, places, and gain a new perspective. And then there's a little pocket in here where I already have some notes pulled from an old reading journal that I had. These are old beta reading notes that I wanted to keep with my future beta reading notes. And of course we do have a little strap so that way this can stay closed. And that is the reading journal cover to cover. And there you go. That is the Notebook Therapy Reading Bullet Journal. I will link the link to this product in my description below. Again, reiterating, not sponsored. In fact, I can't say for sure, but there's a high likelihood this product is actually currently sold out. If it is, I am deeply, deeply sorry, but hopefully it will come back in stock. My hope, I have a vision, in fact, of at the end of every single month, making another sit down chatty video reading wrap up under the structure of doing a journal goal update, check-in. We reopen the pages, we see what books I've read, we see how I've rated them and all the little doodles I have introduced into this journal along the way. And given that another goal of mine this year is to upload 100 YouTube videos, I really, really, really want to stick to this goal because the more standard videos I have planned for every month, I feel like the higher my chances of success are in making 100 videos this year. So wish me luck. Hopefully I will see you again very soon with a new video. But until then, go be happy, go be healthy, and go write. Bye.